the Carrie Steele Pitts home. The founder, Carrie Steele Logan, was an emancipated slave who moved to Atlanta during Reconstruction while working as a maid at the Union Railroad station and encountered many abandoned children. Her compassionate heart and her experience as an orphan compelled her to care for them in her very own home. Carrie raised the money to build a larger space and founded what would become the oldest Black orphanage in the country, the Carrie Steele Pitts home. Locations have changed, but the commitment to children remains. Her epitaph at Oakland Cemetery reads, "The mother of orphans, she hath done what she could." I'm Atlanta City Council member Andrea Boone. The legacy lives.
The Atlanta City Council approves legislation amending the city's Code of Ordinances to clarify alcohol license requirements for reporting food and alcohol sales at annual renewal and update the mandatory penalties for due cause findings of violations. The legislation aims to address nuisance properties and activities that are considered threats to public health and safety and ensure that establishments licensed as restaurants are operating in accordance with license requirements. The Council says yes to legislation requiring a minimum of 33% of net revenue collected for school zone speed camera enforcement remitted to the city be used towards surveillance cameras and license plate readers citywide, and that a minimum of 33% of fund allocations be used toward constructing or improving the city's public safety training facility. The ordinance is companion legislation to a resolution adopted during the Council's January 19th meeting to approve an agreement with Atlanta Public Schools for the school bus stop arm camera enforcement program and authorize the collection and sharing of fines resulting from offenses. The Council greenlights a resolution expressing support for the strategy of the CDC's public health approach to violence, which is characterized by its emphasis on prevention and its strong conviction that violent behavior and its consequences can be prevented over time, and to express support for the CDC's strategy to build and strengthen partnerships with the public and private sectors and at all levels of government to effectively address the multiple forms of violence. The Council approves a resolution requesting that the chief judges of the Superior Courts of Fulton and DeKalb counties share information with the City of Atlanta on how they've adapted court functions to resume operations with the challenges of COVID-19. For more recently approved legislation, please visit our website, citycouncil.atlantaga.gov. This has been your Atlanta City Council Legislative Minute.
Zernona Clayton is a civil rights activist who worked alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Clayton moved to Atlanta in 1965 after taking a job with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She also traveled with Coretta Scott King during concert tours. She's the first Black person to have her own TV show, a corporate executive for Turner Broadcasting for nearly 3 decades. Clayton is the founder, president, and CEO of the Trumpet Awards Foundation, Incorporated, and creator and executive producer of the Trumpet Awards show, which honors the accomplishments of Black Americans. The City of Atlanta honored Clayton with the dedication of a street and park plaza for a lifetime of contributions to humanity. I'm Atlanta City Council member Jennifer Ide. The legacy lives.
We know you and your patients have a lot of questions about the global outbreak of COVID-19, better known as the coronavirus.
Atlanta child psychiatrist Dr. Patrice Harris was the first Black woman elected to serve as president of the American Medical Association. I spoke with her about coronavirus and its impact on our nation. are you encouraged by those additional vaccines that may come online? And then in particular, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which seems to have far less efficacy. How do you convince people who may say, okay, maybe it has a better outcome as relates to death, severe disease or death. However, its percentage is much lower than that of the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccination. How do you convince them when we're already running short and it may be the only one available for a time? What do you say to those folks who are first and foremost nervous about it, especially when you're hearing reports of people having problems after the second immunization or people dying from it? How do you keep that support in favor of the vaccination given these, although low incidents still occur, these incidences still occur?
So let me first start with me. I have received my first dose about 3 weeks ago, and I'm scheduled for my second dose this week. So I want to start there to make sure that folks know I do believe in leading by example. It's the message, but it's also the messenger, but it's also the actions of the messenger. So I have received, again, my first dose and will be receiving my second dose later this week. Yeah, so after the first dose, my arm was sore, and that was it. So my arm was sore about 48 hours, started to get better after that, and that was it. Now, we do know that people do have side effects more often after the second dose where they're, have a little bit of fever, fatigue, don't feel well, like a flu. But I can tell you that when you weigh, a couple of days of not feeling well to saving one's life, for me, I look at dying from this disease versus a couple of days of not feeling well. For me, it's an easy decision.
Several variants of the virus have been discovered in the United Kingdom, South Africa, and Brazil. Both Pfizer and Moderna say a booster may be necessary, and they're working on one. Dr. Harris says she's encouraged by this.
That is good news, that we are identifying earlier, able to identify the science and able to be able to develop additional booster shots as they may be needed. We all should be receiving a tetanus booster every 10 years, right? I don't know about you, but, I had a tetanus shot years ago. I think when I first came to Atlanta and came to train at Emory, and we had to make sure that our immunizations were up to date. That's not a foreign concept that we sometimes need a booster shot.
As for the mental health of our children, many of whom have been somewhat isolated, and they're being educated remotely, Dr. Harris says there's no question that they're still dealing with stress, anxiety, and depression. She encourages parents to find ways to break from screen time and take learning outside. She also promotes the idea of families staying connected in a way that maximizes safety.
You could say, all right, I really want to see you, so we're going to not go anywhere for 10 days, and you're not going to go anywhere for 10 days, and then we're going to do stuff and then do that and then go back. So, I say be creative, but try to stay within the boundaries of what we know decreases risk.
The Atlanta Police Department saw major change in 1948 when it hired its first black police officers. Soon to come along in its ranks in 1950 was Claude Everett Mundy. While responding to a burglary on January 5, 1961, on Parkway Drive, Officer Mundy became the first black officer to be shot and killed in the line of duty. Officer Mundy was 39 years old and left behind a wife and 5 children. He was recently honored with a proclamation during the 60th commemoration of his death. His family was there celebrating his life and his undeniable bravery. I'm Atlanta City Council member Michael Julian Bond. The legacy lives.
We will officially call the meeting to order of the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee on today, February the 8th. We will start with the roll call by Ms. Lindo. Ms. Lindo, can we do a roll call?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair. We have Councilmember Dustin Hiller.
Here.
Councilmember Michael Julian Bond. Mr. Bond. Councilmember Carl Smith.
Here.
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 Here. Councilmember Amir Faroki.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea Boone.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum. Councilmember Winslow is absent. She's been excused, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, let's take a moment to put Ms. Winslow in our prayers and to just close our eyes for a moment. Her mother passed about a week or so ago, and let's just put her in our prayers. Let's just have a moment of silence for Ms. Winslow. Ms. Lindo, can you read the remote meeting statement, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Today's Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee meeting will be conducted remotely as advertised and in accordance with Georgia Code Section 50-14-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by the City Code. The public may access the meeting conference bridge toll-free by dialing 877-579-6743 and entering conference ID number 831-599-1256. This information was also provided on the Friday, February 5th, 2021 public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, the Council's home page at citycouncil.atlanta.ga.gov, Facebook and Twitter pages at ACL Council, and the Council's YouTube channel. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council website on the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee presentations page. Today's meeting agenda was also published and made available on Friday, February 5th via the city's website at atlantacitygA.iqm2.com. In addition, the public was able to submit comments via voicemail at 404-330-6022 yesterday between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. These comments will be played during the public comment portion of this meeting. All persons present on a remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to mute your phones and speakers. Meeting participants wishing to speak must be acknowledged by the committee chair. Amendments, substitutes, presentations, and all informational documents have been distributed to committee members beforehand. I thank you all in advance for your cooperation. Madam Chair, I understand that we have President Felicia Moore on the line as well, and Councilmember Madeline Archibong.
Thank you for the recognition, and we also have our law department on the line also. So thank you so much. We're now moved to adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt? I'll make the motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Yes.
There's been a motion and a second to accept the agenda. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
One moment. The vote is open, Madam Chair. The vote is closed. 68 nays. The meeting agenda has been adopted.
Thank you. We'll now move to approval of the minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second, Smith.
We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. The vote is closed. 68 nays. The meeting minutes have been approved.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We're now up under goals and objectives for for 2021. I believe Ms. Lindo has sent those out to you all. We pretty much approved them last committee meeting. I just want to make sure as we move forward that there are no changes. Since I hope you've read over them, I have no changes or any more things to add. So if we're all on the same page, please say yay now or forever hold your peace. Everybody in agreement? Okay. Thank you. We're now at public comment. We have 4 minutes of public comment. So Ms. Lindo, we will start with public comment now.
One moment, Madam Chair.
My name is Crystal Porter, and I live on Atlanta's east side in zip code 30316. All city council members, especially the at-large members and the city council president, must take personal responsibility for changing the narrative that closing the jail means that violent offenders will roam free on our streets. If any decision is finally taken to leave the jail open, the non-Buckhead parts of town will need to know that the decision is being made without stoking fears and hysteria in Buckhead for the purpose of making a distorted crime narrative emanate across the city. This is especially true in an election year when it can appear that public figures like yourselves could be actually encouraging these narratives for political gain. The public comments from the January 21st work session show that this is a very real threat to a successful campaign to both leave the jail open and get some of you reelected. On the other hand, these same council members and especially citywide office holders like at-large members and the city council president need to also comment publicly on the fact that city council did not make a promise to close the jail. Because if the decision is finally taken to close ACDC, you don't want people from Buckhead thinking that decision was made based solely on a past promise, especially if one never existed. If all of you don't cooperate proactively to dispel the false narratives on both sides of the issue, then you are responsible for fanning the flames of this division in our city. This is especially damning if you are up for re-election this year. Thank you.
United States of Christ. My name is Connie Jordan. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, ye have not hearkened unto me, proclaiming liberty, everyone to his brother, and every man to his neighbor. Behold, I proclaim a liberty for you, saith the Lord, to the poor, to the pestilence, and to the famine. And I will make you to be removed unto all the kingdoms of the earth. Jeremiah 34, chapter 17, verse. That ye be not judged refers to the ultimate judgment of God rather than our own judgment. A law that endorses bondage is against the word of God. Jesus said the practice of pressure leads to death, said Montgomery. Pestilence means a failed epidemic like the pandemic. Why had come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law? Matthew 10, chapter 35th verse. For my name's sake, they will endure great persecution because of their identification with Jesus Christ. Hear him, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. Psalm 78, chapter 1st verse. The psalm begins with a call to learn from the nation's mistakes in the past. The adulterers and adulteresses. Ye know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God. Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. James 4, chapter 4, verse. One cannot be both a lover of God and a lover of the world. Jesus teaches us how to fight against the ways of the world that leads to destruction. We don't want destruction. We want life from Christ. That's why we need to seek to obey him. Thanks and obey Jesus.
Thank you. I believe that is all the comments we have for today. So we will now move to upon item number 8, communication. Ms. Lindo, can you sound item number 1, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is Communication 21C0016. This is communication from Debbie Silkinski, President of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, submitting the appointment of Ms. Christy Peters to serve on the Atlanta Citizen Review Board in the Neighborhood Planning Unit Group S through Z category. This appointment is for a term of 3 years, and we do have Ms. Peters on the line, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And as Ms. Peters comes to speak, I want to make a correction. It says that she resides in District 12 in Peopletown, and I want Ms. Peters to correct me because I believe she does live in Capitol View neighborhood, not in Peopletown. So, Ms. Peters, I'm happy to have you here today before us. Please share with us why you want to serve. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And you are correct. I do live in Capitol View in District 12. I was interested and am interested in serving on ACRB because I believe staunchly that citizens should have a voice in reviewing activities between our law enforcement community and the residents. We need to engender more trust. We need to make sure that people are aware and bring that back to their communities of what's happening when we have situations like this. And I just have a passion for that. I have a passion for making sure that people are well informed and actually involved and making sure that people know that they have a responsibility to keep on top of these kinds of things. So that is my reason for serving. I've served as Capitol View president for 3 years until I stepped down this past year because I had a lot of responsibilities on my plate. So I'm very committed to being active in my community, and I look forward to continuing to do so.
Thank you, Ms. Peters, and I will tell you she is very active in the community. She lives in the neighborhood right over from me, and so she's been very active. My motion is to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Smith.
We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
Thank you, Ms. Peters, for volunteering to serve. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to item number 2. Ms. Lindo, can you sound that item, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. That's Communication 21C0017. This is communication from Ann Phillips, the Vice President, Atlanta Planning and Advisory Board, submitting the appointment of Dr. Michael Woodard to serve on the Atlanta Citizen Review Board in the Neighborhood Planning Unit, Group G through L category. This appointment is for a term of 3 years. And Dr. Woodard is on the line, Madam Chair.
Dr. Borders, how are you this afternoon? Please come forward to introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve.
Thank you very much for having me. My reasons for serving might be just a bit personal in the sense that I have a 17-year-old granddaughter, Zion, and a 16-year-old grandson, Devin, and they both enjoy driving whenever they can. And so certainly as grandfather, it was my responsibility to have the conversation with them should they ever be stopped by law enforcement. And so I am just concerned that my grandkids or any grandkids or any kids would have an untoward contact with police. It's important for me to say that I have had considerable interaction with law enforcement in Zone 4 and in Zone 1. And I believe that the overwhelming majority of APD men and women are just absolutely concerned with uplifting our youth and keeping our citizens safe. I have had the opportunity to kind of observe the Citizens Review Board for a number of months, and one thing that I must say is that its function, its operation is just absolutely necessary and essential, and to protect our youth and Atlanta citizens, and it's my responsibility as a citizen and as a grandfather to contribute in any way that I can. And so to be a part of the Citizens Review Board is just a obligation that I must fulfill. And for those reasons, I wish to be a part of the Atlanta Citizens Review Board. I will also say that I'm a certified mediator, and so spent very experienced in conflict resolution, and I'm a professor of sociology and have taught a number of courses and conducted research on various aspects of criminal justice. And so I come at this from a personal point of view and from somewhat of an academic point of view. But most importantly, I'm just a citizen of Fulton County of the city of Atlanta, and I want to do what I can do to make this city better.
Move approval.
Second. Dr. Woodard, I'm honored to have you to serve also. So Mr. Bond has approved, and I second that. We're ready for the vote. Mr. Honor.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. Everyone please vote. Everyone please vote. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Woodard.
Thank you all very much.
All right. We're going to move. We have another item that's coming off of sale. Item number 15. Ms. Lindo, is the person here today? Is Ms. Williams here today?
Madam. Yes, Madam Chair. I understand she is.
Okay. Would you like to go ahead and sound item number 15, please?
Yes. Communication 20C0147. This is a communication from Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom reappointing Ms. Michonne Williams to serve as a member of the License Review Board. This appointment is for a term of 2 years.
Ms. Williams, are you there? Ms. Williams, I'm honored to have her. I also know her personally also, but Ms. Williams, if you can come in, if you can let her unmute her so she can speak and tell us why she wants to serve again.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
All right. Please just tell us again why you want to serve, and thank you for all the service you've done for the city of Atlanta.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Williams. I have been asked would I like to go up for reappointment for serving on the License Review Board. It has been my pleasure for a little bit over 2 years that I have served in this position as a board member active, and being able to be a part of the decisions that are being made in our city and around us. I do feel that I do represent a large community and in my area that I live in, as well as I like to know about opportunities for new businesses in our city, as well as the ones that we are continuing to make sure that are working with the community that do need work and help with resolutions when these things are denied. I think especially right now with everything that's happening in this past year in 2020, we have seen some changes with some of the current people that have come before us that are requesting to either renew their license or some even new opportunities. I know that some of our city and citizens of our cities and residents are concerned with crime and different changes that are happening in different areas, especially in the Buckhead community. I do reside in that community, and I do have an interest to make sure that we are fully taking serious those new businesses as well as existing businesses as they come before the board, that we are really doing a good job at vetting and asking specific questions related to security, valet, making sure that this is a good fit and encouraging those business owners and agents to work with the neighborhood to make sure that they keep this at the top of their priorities. And I would be very happy to serve again as another 2 years to continue to make sure this does happen.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Howard.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Ms. Lindo, we're ready for the vote.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. Please vote.
This is Bond. I got knocked off. This was yay.
That's 6 yeas, 0 nays, Madam Chair. That item is favorable.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We're now up under item I, presentations, and we have before us Interim Police Chief Rodney Bryant. Mr. Bryant, are you here? Are you there?
I am, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for having me and the rest of the council.
Thank you. You got it.
Okay. As we begin this year, I want to talk about how we ended last year. So, and I apologize. This is Rodney Bryant, the interim chief of the City of Atlanta Police Department. If you would go to the next slide, which will actually show our 2020 year-end totals for the year. I will go specifically through the numbers so you have an understanding of where we are, where we ended the year. We ended the year with a total of 157 homicides over the previous year of 99, giving us a 59% increase. In rate, those numbers were decreased by 53%. Robberies was decreased by 15%. Our aggravated assault numbers were up by 14%. Our burglary numbers were down by 26%. Our larcenies from autos were down 13%. And our other larcenies were down 30%. And auto thefts up 5%, giving us a total of 21% down. We clearly saw more increases in our shootings, which was up 44%, and the number of victims were also up by 45%. Total firearm seized was down by 5%, and our firearm crimes were down by 11% over the previous year. And our domestic numbers were up significantly up to 48%. Our murder clear-up rates were up by 42%, which was significant. Our clear-up rates were down 30%, as so as our robbery numbers, down by 29%. Our aggravated assault numbers were up by 5%, and our burglaries up by 1%. Larcenies were down by 32%, other larcenies 43%, and auto thefts were down by were down by 50%. So just going, I won't go through the total Part 1 arrests and and all of our total arrests, as those numbers were down in totality by 31%. And then the other activity section is where our traffic stop and our traffic violations. I've gotten a number of questions of why our numbers were down. Clearly, there are a number of different variables that have played into that, to include the reduction in traffic that we saw over the year of 2020, as well as the level that we had to give it during the extended period of civil unrest, and then the actions that we saw afterwards. But those numbers had begun to improve on the backside. So that's the numbers in total as it relates to how we ended the year. The back end, next page, please. Next page, please. Our 2020 homicide numbers at the end of the quarter from October to December, we saw homicides in all 6 zones, respectively. Zone 1 had 9, Zone 2 had 3, Zone 3 had 16, Zone 4 had 14, Zone 5 had 11, and Zone 6 had 5 over that last quarter, giving us a total of 58. Next slide, please. Next slide is our 2020 homicides year to date. Currently, what we are seeing is Zone 1 has had 3 homicides, Zone 2 has 1, Zone 3 has 3, Zone 4 has 2, Zone 5 has 1, Zone 6 has 1, giving us 11 homicides year to date. Next slide, please. Auto theft numbers, and the auto theft has been very problematic for us. These are the numbers, something that we started to see spike on us on the back end of last year, and which was unusual is the number of vehicles that we continue to either have left running or with the keys in them. Per zone, however, Zone 1 has had 145 vehicles theft, Zone 2, 241, Zone 3, 138, Zone 4, 131, Zone 5, 243, Zone 6, 156 total vehicles, giving us a total of 1,054 vehicles stolen over the last quarter. Year to date, Zone 1, we've seen, next page, please, I apologize, next page. Zone 1 has had 54 vehicles stolen. Zone 2, year to date, 103. Zone 3, 56. Zone 4, 47. Zone 5, 130. Zone 6, 56, giving us a total of 446 vehicles stolen. As I stated earlier, 70%, 70% of the vehicles that are stolen throughout the city either have the keys in them or the vehicles left running. We are really trying to push as much information as we possibly can to continue to educate the community, as well as continue to increase our visibility in the areas that we generally see these vehicles being targeted. One of the areas that we continue to see this being a significant problem is in our the new food pickup and delivery services. We are really reaching out to those entities to see if they can actually educate their drivers as well, to see if they can assist us in reducing the number of vehicles being left running while individuals run into restaurants to go pick up food for delivery. Next page, please. The next page addresses our 2020 fourth quarter attrition. What we saw at the end of the year was very much in line what we typically see at the end of the year. We had 19 resignations, 12 retire, 4 recaptures ended, and 2 dismissed. We did, however, have hired 17 over the past quarter. So what we're doing to address the attrition is really retooling our efforts as it relates to recruitment, making sure that we're actually increasing the number of recruitment initiatives that we have going into 2021, as well as working with the mayor's office and administration to make sure that we can expound upon the level of the level of recruitment initiatives that we can put forth to make sure that we are bringing the right candidates to this city and expanding what we're doing in that space. And then just real quickly, I'll talk about street racing as we continue to be challenged in that area, but seeing a significant level of improvement as it relates to what we're seeing. The numbers have gone down drastically over the past month and a half. What we're seeing that by the end of the month, the numbers that we saw in December were just a third of what we saw in November. We saw 406 complaints of street racing in November, and in December only 270. And then by January 21st, we saw 281. That was significantly down from the beginning of the quarter, where we were seeing 566 street racing calls that we were getting through our 911 center. We believe that the reductions that we are seeing is clearly attributed to the strategies that we have put in place and the cooperations that we are having and the partnerships that we've established with our surrounding cities and agencies as we look at a holistic way of combating and strategizing to reduce the number of incidents we are seeing and the number of calls that we're seeing. And I truly believe that that plan has been effective. And so we've been able to see those numbers go down a lot. And then overall, I know quite often I'm asked about the loud exhaust system. We had a total of 30 arrests as it relates, citations for that. 196 citations for loud exhaust system and 30 arrests as it relates to the loud exhaust system. So I think that, again, assisting us with that charge has also helped us in our endeavor in reducing what we're seeing around street racing. We still recognize that there's still some challenges as it relates to it, but I truly believe that we'll continue to see those numbers reduce. And that's it for my report, Madam Chair, and open for any questions that you all may have.
If you have questions, could you please press the speaker button so that I can recognize you? I do see 1, 2, 3. Okay. We'll start with Mr. Hillis, followed by Mr. Bond. Mr. Hillis.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman Shepherd, and thank you for your presentation, Interim Chief Bryant. I do have a number of questions about some of the slides that were presented and some specific items within those slides. One, and I guess this is more of a request, but I would request on our 2020 arrests, specifically for murders, because we've seen such an uptick in those in 2020. I'd really like to see the numbers as to within those numbers, how many of those are repeat offenders, broken down, whether they're repeat offenders for other felonies or previous misdemeanors, and then the total number of arrests for each of those individuals before they were arrested, before they committed the murder that they're charged with. Is that something the department can provide?
I'll get with the teams that put those numbers together and see if that we can pull. It doesn't sound too difficult, but I'll have to make sure that they get that's something that we get.
Okay. I appreciate that. Next item.
Mr. Hillis, I just want to make sure that when you do it, you send it not to Mr. Hillis, but to everybody. That's a good question, Mr. Hillis. Just want to make sure. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No worries, Chairwoman Shepherd. Definitely want to see those numbers and continue the conversation with the DA and others that are our partners. So you did highlight, how crime was down 14%, but arrests were down double that number to 30%. And then also notice the pre-arrest diversion referrals were down even double that number, 67%. And we're certainly, this council has made it known and through our budget and other measures that I want to see that program expanded. So just one, what are your comments on evening those numbers up where the arrests or more closely match the crime rate? What's the plan to address that, and also what's the status of the PAD program?
So I'll start with the PAD program. We're still having our officers utilize that program, and so I'm certain that we will see that number increase throughout the year. As it relates to our arrest numbers, as it relates to in the other areas of crime, again, even though we saw the totality of the total number of arrests, the total number of crimes, the percentage go down, and our arrest numbers go down. Well, the arrest is not always indicative of the number of crimes that we see. It's clear by us seeing the reduction in that. However, I think that the strategies that we are utilizing to actually make sure that we're in the right places and talk to the right individuals, we'll see that number either increase because what you have to also recognize when you look at the arrest numbers is that an individual may have done multiple incidents, going back to your question or your earlier statement about a repeat offender. A person may have committed a number of crimes for the top offenses that show on arrest at the bottom. So other than in the clear space. So I think that will help us out significantly just in the strategy that we address crime.
Understood. Thank you for that. And the next question, moving on to the slide, showing our attrition and our hires. We're just in that quarter, in that presentation, over half the attrition was resignations. And that was the net on that was minus 20, and that's certainly not sustainable. So I'd like to hear some more specifics as to our retention and recruitment efforts that have or will be happening very soon.
Yeah, as I stated, one of the things that we clearly recognize is that overall, we're seeing the numbers stave off just a bit. We're not seeing the same level of attrition that we saw earlier in the beginning of the summer. So those numbers got down to our more normal rate. Now, the new hires is where we're actually having a problem, and it's not because of our level of recruitment. It's because of the systems that other entities are in or operating through due to COVID. We're just unable to be able to get the level of background information and the information needed from other businesses and other individuals to get everybody through the pipeline in a timely fashion. we believe, though, that if we continue to increase in that respect of recruitment, that number will go up. And as I stated earlier, we are actually increasing our recruitment efforts at least by 30%, as well as working with the mayor's office and the police foundation to make sure that we can increase that number, as well as working through having other conversations about how reduce the number of people leaving the police department.
Thank you. Two final questions, or a question and a request. First question, where are we at in the conversations, either internally or with our other partners, about the joint training facility for APD fire and police, and whether we're talking to our partners at Fulton, because it's my understanding that they're also talking about building a training center in Fulton County, and that just seems duplicative and something that we could be partners on. So wondering where the conversations are so far about constructing that joint training facility.
Absolutely. So the mayor's office and myself have had a number of conversations as it relates to how we look going forward. Clearly, in the One Atlanta plan, One Atlanta One APD plan, it talks about us moving forward, relates to us going into a new facility. And so where we are at this very moment, I think that there's still some level of discussions to be had on exactly what that rollout will look like, but we are in discussion.
Thank you. Final item is a request. We'll make this request to Atlanta Fire Rescue as well. But I would like a list, and encourage it to be sent to the whole committee on a itemized, prioritized list of APD facility replacement or upgrade needs. I know we just finished up the Zone 3 precinct and would like a list of where other APD precincts and facilities stand as far as the need for replacement or upgrades. That came up in my discussion about impact fees, which of course the CDHS committee will be addressing the first of this year. So would like that list.
Certainly, we could.
Say that again, Chief. You kind of broke up.
I'm sorry. Certainly, we could clearly put Dean to be able to provide you that information. That's not a problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And as I mentioned, Chairwoman Shepherd, I would request that Ms. Lindo would also send that same request over to Atlanta Fire Rescue so we can see their facility needs list.
Yes, Mr. Hillis. Got it.
And that is it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to add, Chief, in terms of the report for the numbers that Mr. Hillis asked for, I would like to see if they could come back before the committee in terms of those reports that he asked us for specifically. I think it'd be important that we as a committee look at those numbers also, not just internally among ourselves, but have a discussion on it among the committee. So thank you. I'm going to move on to Mr. Bond at this point. Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief, for your report. My first question is, it relates to the portion of the report of the confiscated weapons. So these are weapons you confiscated during the effect of an arrest, that 5% you left.
I'm sorry, you were coming in. I couldn't hear you. Say it again. I'm sorry.
I was asking about the confiscation of weapons. I know that there was an earlier report in I believe the last quarter of 2020 that talked about there were over 1,000 handguns and stolen from vehicles. And so I was asking you about the weapons that you reported that were confiscated, and said they were. I'm just trying to get clarity that they were confiscated during arrest, generally.
Yes, absolutely. I apologize. So the 5% reduction that you're seeing as it relates to firearms seized, these are firearms that we would have seized either in while they were involved in some form of crime or something that we discovered in a search warrant or something to that nature. But that's the totality of the number of the firearms we seize over the year.
Okay. Is there any, do you track the data of how many of these firearms that have been stolen, I guess largely from vehicles, about their recovery? Recovery, or is that they're just in the wind once they're gone?
Yeah, so when we're recovering, we do count the number of the firearms that we seized that were stolen. If they are broken down from a vehicle or from a resident, I don't know. I would have to get with my team to see if we track it that way. I don't think we do, but I'll clearly follow back up with you to see if we break it down to that degree.
Okay. And I want to compliment you on the murder clear-up rate. Is that in part due to what has been described as the type of murders that have been committed of these individuals being somewhat acquainted with each other, or how do you account for that dramatic increase?
Well, clearly, I'll start with the efforts of the men and women that really continue to work diligently throughout the entire year in that respect. I think that they were really committed, and regardless of how many incidents were occurring, they stayed with it. So we're starting there. But clearly, as you stated, for a number of the incidences that we had where they was just individuals who just didn't know how to have a level of conflict resolution, that does play a part. That the actions were just careless, and they put very little effort into trying to hide their actions. So that does play a part. But again, I'll go back to the men and women of this police department, and truly to our homicide unit, which remains steadfast in getting their jobs done.
And I want to thank you for that, and I want to add my kudos to that. But I was distressed about the number of domestic violence increase that you talked about. I know that of course, it's the job of APD to respond to calls. Is there any related services that take place when there are these types of incidences? I mean, because I guess it's obvious, so many people being at home, being confined, those pressures mount, and then you have the abuse. Is there any follow-up, or like with the victim witness program in the court, for example, these cases?
Yes, absolutely. So we continue to work with victim witness and the courts as it relates to the numbers that you see. But clearly we recognize that due to COVID and individuals being under those stresses, that number was going to increase. And so we are continuing to look at other avenues and resources to see what we could do to help minimize those numbers. But that's what we attribute the increase.
I see. Well, I have another question, not necessarily, it's related to your presentation. Some of the concerns that I've been getting in the last few weeks is wondering about how officers are dispersed throughout the city. And I've gotten several questions I couldn't answer, so I'm going to ask you. During COVID, since the dynamic of who's in the city during particular hours during the day or not, how are officers being distributed? Because we know largely during the daytime, if COVID was not in place, there'd probably be more officers assigned, I guess, in the downtown and midtown area because there's more people in those areas during particular hours. Have you adjusted the way that you have assigned officers, given the fact that some of these population swings are not in place like they were a year ago? How are you distributing, the workforce?
So overall, the zones have the individuals dispersed throughout the 6 zones. They're, for the most part, balanced, with the exception of Zone 5, who continue to have the highest number of resources due to the type of assignment that we have there with the downtown and the pedestrians and things of that nature. Additional and support individuals are dispersed as it relates to us being able to either tackle the crime that is plaguing those areas that may have them. So COVID did not really make us adjust to that level, Councilman. We continue to manage based on our calls for service as well as the crime that we're seeing in certain areas.
So it's not it's good to hear that it is the response to incidences as opposed to population that determine where, when people are going to be deployed.
Correct.
That's okay. Yeah, well, I got that right. And then I guess my last concern, and I'm glad to hear that the recruitment numbers of people who are interested in joining APD is actually going up. Can you expound on that? What do you attribute to the renewed interest? Because I know after the summer, there didn't seem to be much interest anywhere in the country of people pursuing a law enforcement career. What do you attribute to the interest now? And is there anything that we can do to help with the efforts to get these people processed?
So right now, that's a good question, Councilman, on what you all could do to help us. It's just, the challenges we are getting is as you go through many businesses and those businesses are closed, so us being able to contact them to get the paperwork and information we need to follow up on a candidate is just very challenging. Even in some areas of other governments, not ours, but in other governments, when people are working from home, it just slows that process down. So that's the challenge. I think it's just a matter of us on how we engage through this. How do we engage other entities through this period? As it relates to why we are seeing the response, or why we're getting response that we're getting to apply to the city of Atlanta, again, I'll have to attribute that to some of our recruitment and background individuals who continue to come up with ideas and ways to have outreach. But we recognize that we have to even increase where we are. We've got to continue this momentum going into 2021 and improve upon it, because even though we're getting these candidates, we have to work through them, and that number will dwindle down. So we'll continue to be charged as it relates to improving upon what we're seeing there.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to dominate, but I'll withdraw there. Chief, thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chief, I'd like to ask, how many classes do we have right now? Do we have classes right now?
Yes, we do. Yes.
And how many are in the class?
So we should have 2 classes in the academy currently. One should be graduating relatively soon, and then we have individuals ready to go into which we call zero status, a group that are prepared to go into the academy once this group come out. But due to COVID, we have to minimize the number of classes we have as well.
I'm sorry. I was talking and I was muted. I apologize. Do you have any idea how many people are in our classes right now, the number of people? And when are they expected to go?
I don't have, and believe it or not, ma'am, they gave me that number earlier this morning. I can get it to you before we get off of this call.
Okay. Just curious, as we talk about where we are in terms of graduation and all of that and recruitment and where we're going. I mean, it's really important. So in terms of the people who are coming in, you're saying it's great to hear that we're not, we're having people who are actually coming in and saying they want to work with the police department still, because there's this connotation out there that people don't want to work for the City of Atlanta Police Department. So it's great to hear that folks are coming in, that we're getting recruits. And I'm hoping that we can really wrap up our numbers as quickly as we can.
Yes, ma'am. We'll continue to work at it.
All right. Any other questions from any of my other colleagues? Okay, with that, thank you, Chief Bryant, for coming on.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. We're now moved to the consent agenda. We have claims for favorable and unfavorable recommendations. We'll take the claims for favorable first, and I believe those are items 1 through 3. Is that correct, Ms. Lindo?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
All right. Are we ready for those votes? Items 1 through 3. Is there a motion to approve? I'll make the motion.
Second, Hillis.
We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
Oh, one moment. The vote is open, Madam Chair. Please vote. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. Those items are approved. I believe Ms. Boone is away, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask people away. Okay. Thank you. We'll now move to items with unfavorable recommendations, and those are items 4 through 27. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Hillis. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
Vote is open. Madam Chair, to adverse. Please vote. The vote's closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. Those items have been adversed.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We're now up on our regular agenda, and we're actually at resolution. Ms. Lindo, can you sound item number 1 up on the resolution? Please.
Yes, this is resolution 21R3111. This is a resolution by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond, encouraging establishment that hire off-duty police officers to employ officers from within their original territorial jurisdiction to ensure that the officers who are hired have the authority to make arrests when necessary and for other purposes.
Mr. Bond, do you want to speak to this? And then I'm going to ask the law department. I'd like to ask the law department a question too. Mr. Bond, would you like to speak, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I'm going to ask that we hold this legislation. I understand that the law department has suggested some changes. I have not spoken with them. And I've also spoken with other representatives of police organizations that would like to contribute to this piece of legislation. I introduced it because most people assume that when you see a police officer from another jurisdiction working an extra job here in Atlanta, that because they are certified policing power originates at the state level, people assume that those individuals within our jurisdiction, if they're from outside of our jurisdiction, have similar or identical policing power, but that is in fact not the case. If you do not have a police officer who's from the quote-unquote original jurisdiction, meaning Atlanta or as corresponding or overlapping jurisdictions such as the Fulton County Sheriff or the State Patrol, et cetera, then they have no more policing authority in Atlanta than an individual citizen does. And if that individual in his assumed security role is responding to a crime or uses their weapon, then the city of Atlanta could be held responsible for that individual's actions if they're proven to be illegal or harmful. So that is the genesis of this. And so I'd like to hold it for a cycle so I can get with the law department and our representatives from the police organizations to hammer out these final details. So my motion is to hold.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. And to that point, I will withhold any questions I have because I can actually entertain some questions with the law department also since we're going to hold it. So the motion is to hold. I'll second that. We're ready for the vote. Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. Will everyone please vote? The vote's closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. That item will be held.
Thank you. We're now at item number 2. Ms. Lindo, would you sound that, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is Resolution 21R3112. This is a resolution by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond directing the mayor or her designee in accordance with the procedures set out in Section 2-1187 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to direct the City of Atlanta Department of Procurement to initiate a process to secure proposals from qualified vendors for the implementation of an automated school zone fee enforcement program as authorized by Georgia Code 401418 and for other purposes.
Mr. Bond, do you want to speak to that? I do have a question, but if you have nothing at this point, Mr. Bond, this is your paper. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, I introduced this paper after learning more details about the actions that City Council took almost a month ago on IGA with the school system. And I'll just be frank and honest. I received a call from a member of the media about the deal, the IGA that we supported with the school system. Frankly, the questions, some of them I could not answer, and I was alarmed at the implications of what we had passed. So I introduced this legislation to rescind that action so that the City of Atlanta, who has the sole authority to set up these cameras everywhere in the city, and then has the authority with the associated action to enforce and collect revenue so that we can just simply rebid this effort and follow our procedures to the letter. Given the environment that we are in with our procurement department over the last few years, given the federal investigation into actions that have happened, I believe that it is extremely prudent that the city dot every I, cross every T, and do everything strictly by the book as it relates to this matters. So that is the long short of it, unless someone has a question.
Well, I just want to get clarity from the law department in terms of, and I think you were referencing it because of the fact that, you know, we just passed legislation on the speed cameras in the school zones in the city of Atlanta. But I want to get clarity from the law department. When I talk to the law department, those cameras that we're getting, is the city of Atlanta purchasing those cameras, or are those cameras being purchased by, and I believe they're being purchased by the Atlanta Public School System and not going through our procurement process? Ms. Roberts, Amber, are you on the call?
Yes. Hi, Chair Shepard. This is Amber Robinson from the City of Atlanta Department of Law. That's absolutely correct. I believe that there is some level of misunderstanding considering the state law regarding these programs. Councilmember Vaughn mentioned and is referenced in the legislation that there's a belief that the City of Atlanta has sole authority over such programs. That is absolutely not the case. The state law states plainly in its statute that authorizes these programs that they may not be initiated unless and until the individual schools act to apply for a permit for such program, for the application of such permits in their school zones. Those permit applications have to be filed with the State Department of Transportation, and absent any such permits, no such program may commence. So under state law, there is a requirement that the territorial jurisdiction that runs the law enforcement agency, which is the police department, in this case in the City of Atlanta, must have at least some partnership with the schools or the school system whom can, which can apply for the appropriate Georgia Department of Transportation permits for the authorization of a school speed zone camera enforcement program. To this end, the IGA that this council has approved or authorized the city to enter into last month anticipates that APS will file those applications on behalf of their individual schools as is required by state law, and that they, APS, would procure or bring to the table the camera equipment and the camera processing. The City of Atlanta is not procuring any service from any outside company. The City of Atlanta is only entering into an intergovernmental agreement, which is authorized by the state constitution for APS to join in with the City of Atlanta in the implementation of this program.
Thank you. And I can even ask you, Mr. Martin. I believe Mr. Martin from the chairman is on the call also. But in this particular case with the school zones cameras, will there ever be any process based on you saying by state law that we will actually be purchasing cameras for procurement up under the school zone?
No, not under the process as outlined in the IGA. APS would be responsible for bringing in the cameras and the camera processing function, as well as the application for the prerequisite permits with the State Department of Transportation. The city would review the citations generated and certify those such that the citations would come from the City of Atlanta, as is also referenced in the legislation at issue here. It would be the City of Atlanta which would issue the citations, and the City of Atlanta would also supply the court venue for the any appeals, any citations issued.
So through this process, there were questions in terms of the process in terms of the funding and the money that was allocated for these cameras and how APS is doing this process, with that being something that we will look at as a city, or if we have to go to the Atlanta public school system and have a discussion? Are we tied legally in any way to that whole process, that procurement process?
Thank you for that. No, we are not tied in any way to the procurement process between APS and the vendor that they have selected in order to provide the camera and processing services. That was wholly done by the Atlanta Public Schools. The City of Atlanta will have no privity based on the IGA of contract with that vendor, and will have no legal relationship with that vendor. Our relationship will be with the Atlanta Public Schools. Insofar as there are questions concerning anything regarding the contract between, or the proposed contract between the Atlanta Public Schools and their chosen vendor, the City of Atlanta is unable to answer those questions.
Okay. All right, so that gives me clarity. So in terms of where we're going with this particular resolution, Mr. Bond, is it necessary for us to do this based on that, or let me understand?
Well, I think it's completely necessary to do that based on the explanation of our esteemed council. The City of Atlanta is partnering in a proposed deal of which we have no authority on a contract with the vendor on the APS side that has no history, does not perform any like service in implementing this deal. So what APS, what the city would lend itself to, would be a change order of an existing contract from a person who, I guess, a bus camera stop sign vendor. They take pictures of people who pass school buses, and they would, I would assume, do a change in that contract without bidding, without public notice, to provide them this camera contract. And also, I'd have to push back against our esteemed council. The City of Atlanta has the sole authority for traffic laws. The APS does not do that. They do not have that authority. They do not have that authority within the streets. Again, I think that, if something doesn't look right, if you have to question it, then it's probably best not to do it. And just because you can accomplish a goal in a particular way doesn't mean that you should. The City of Atlanta should sign an IGA, an appropriate IGA with the school system to do this work, to establish these cameras, get them in place to keep the school zone safe. That is not what is in dispute. It is the way the goal is being accomplished. And this is potentially, from what I'm told, by the media who are investigating this, potentially $100 million. And so we would be lending ourselves to a practice via our partnership in the IGA to have a change order on a contract to increase its value almost 4 times without public bid or any public scrutiny beyond what we do. And so APS is not, at this point, from the information that I've received today, acted upon this, so nothing has happened. We have not jeopardized any operation, any bid procedures, any advertisements for a change order or anything like that at this point. We would be free to start over fresh with a new IGA that not only is cleaner and addresses the issues. I don't know if anybody else got this letter today with a lot of explanation that runs counter to what we've just received from our esteemed counsel, Ms. Robinson, and cites several sections of the state code. Of course, I'm not a lawyer, But this is an interesting letter, and it also doesn't alleviate my concerns that this resolution is not necessary. And so I believe by starting fresh, starting over, and just following the more traditional path of the way to accomplish this is the way to not only get this done, but also get it done with full and total public confidence. So I believe the resolution is necessary and would move it to.
Madam Chair, I would ask that the Law Department be able to be heard on this.
Go ahead.
Ms. Robinson.
Okay. Hi. Thank you, Ms. Hickson. I do want to distinguish the authority as stated by Councilmember Bond that the City of Atlanta is the primary jurisdiction for traffic enforcement within the City of Atlanta. That is true, but we are not the only entity that is authorized to enforce traffic on the streets of the City of Atlanta. As was mentioned during the discussion of the previous piece of legislation, there are several law enforcement entities who are authorized to enforce traffic in the City of Atlanta. But the reason why we must partner with the schools in this instance is not because of our traffic enforcement authority. It is because specifically in OCGA 4014, 18, sub A, sub 2, each school within whose school zone such automatic traffic enforcement safety device is to be placed must first apply for and secure a permit from the Department of Transportation for the use of such automatic traffic enforcement safety device. And so that is where that comes from. It's not through our traffic enforcement authority. There was a mention of the school bus stop arm agreement that we currently have with the Atlanta Public Schools. That is an important fact here. We have, since 2015, been in an agreement with the Atlanta Public Schools, which is done up quite similarly to the proposed IGA for camera enforcement on school bus stop arms. And it is, while we, the City of Atlanta, are not entering into a change order or any expansion with any private entity related to that school bus stop arm agreement, we are in fact simply just expanding our intergovernmental agreement with the Atlanta Public Schools to do both the school bus piece as well as the speed camera piece. The city is not expanding on anything. There's been a mention of a $10 million change order. The City of Atlanta is not entering into any sort of thing. As stated, we are only entering into an intergovernmental agreement with APS, which does build upon the pre-existing intergovernmental agreement with APS for the operation of the school bus stop arm program, which has been in place without challenge since 2015. This is the same structure, just as that we did not put it out to bid to enter into the IGA with APS for the school bus stop arm, because that is an intergovernmental agreement and does not require any procurement as such. This is the same thing. This is an intergovernmental agreement with the Atlanta Public Schools. It doesn't require anything to go to bid from our perspective. So as there was no requirement for bid in 2015, there is none here. There was nothing in the structure as authorized by the Atlanta City Council last month, which even anticipates private contracting or procurement.
Madam Chair, may I respond?
I do want to hear from Ms. Hickson. Did you have anything else you want to add?
I did. One other thing I wanted to point out is there are currently 2 bills over in the General Assembly, which would amend the applicable state law to read as the counsel from Red Steed or the media or whomever is reading this. In other words, if it was not necessary to change the law to put this in the authorization of the city, then the bills wouldn't be pending before the General Assembly at this time. And so our reading is consistent with the fact that the law, which changed in 2018, requires that the school system does the permitting and the request for permitting, and then they have to work out the agreement with the jurisdiction which enforces the traffic laws. And so that was what I wanted to add to the discussion, that if the particular item or interpretation of Red Steed or their counsel was correct, then there wouldn't be a need for legislation, which is now being considered over at the General Assembly, to change it such that it would operate the way that Red Steed indicates that it operates.
But at this point, that's not there yet. It's just saying that they're looking at it as a part of the legislative process. Correct? Ms. Hickson, did you hear my question? Hello? Can you all hear me? Hello?
I hear you. Councilmember Shepherd, that's correct. This is Amber, that's correct. They're pending before the General Assembly if not passed.
So the other question I had to ask is that APS as a whole, have we had this discussion with APS? Because they also are over at the legislative processes, and has this letter gone to Red Steed sent this letter over to Atlanta Public School System? Because again, this is not our fight. This is over with the Atlanta Public School System. So we'll be voting on something that's really not a part of our purview. Have we had discussions with the Atlanta Public School System about that? And does anybody know what their position is?
I have, Councilmember Shepherd. Today I spoke with their counsel. It is the position of APS as stated to me that they are fine with where we are. They are comfortable. They've responded to Red Steed to state that they will be treating their letter as a procurement objection and will be moving forward in defense of their actions accordingly.
So they're going to move forward anyway. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, they are moving. They are comfortable with where they are with the city of Atlanta pursuant to the legislation authorizing the IGA, and they are responding to Red Steed and will be treating the letter that Red Steed sent to them as a procurement objection and will be defending their actions in accordance with their procurement procedures.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if this legislation is needed, Mr. Bond, if we're not tied towards it anyway. So I'm going to let you speak at this point, but I'm just trying to understand why we need to vote this up if we're not tied to the procurement process. What is the point?
The point is that we have to govern our actions accordingly, and it is important the way that we do business. And it is also important that we enter into agreements that represent the way that we would like to do business and not wash our process. Whoever.
You're breaking up, Mr. Bond. You're breaking up.
Well, what part didn't you hear? I didn't. When did I begin to break up? I said a lot.
The last sentence.
The point I'm trying to make is that it's important how we do business, not to wash our hands and say that we would lend ourselves to or ignore what our partner in an IGA may or may not do. As far as the facts recited by our esteemed counsel, Ms. Robinson, whether or not the city of Atlanta can enter into an IGA is not in dispute. So, I mean, I appreciate your explanation, but that is not the point of this resolution. It is not the point of this resolution to defend or not defend actions that might be pending in the state legislature. The state legislature may act, they may not act on anything. But the point of this is for the city of Atlanta to represent its processes as above board when we're dealing in contracts, particularly those that will, or agreements that will generate revenue and funds and money on behalf of the citizens of the city of Atlanta. And so if something, just because you can do something a particular way, doesn't mean that you should. I believe that we should start over. I believe that we should renegotiate an idea that would allow for a fair and open bid process, such in the same way that we would do in the city of Atlanta. And as far as the point about enforcement, yes, there are other law enforcement agencies that can write tickets in Atlanta and enforce traffic. But in this instance, we would be assuming the authority that is given to us solely as far our courts are concerned as to adjudicating these tickets. So to that degree, we are very much involved, and I don't think that the city of Atlanta should lend itself to processes that are subject to challenges, that are subject to such obvious questions, particularly those for the media. And I would point out, I supported the school bus contract, but that contract and IGA with the city of Atlanta is narrow in scope. We are lending ourselves potentially to a process that would expand that contract into something that's worth not $10 million, potentially $100 without bid, without public input, without any scrutiny. And I am not for that. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't know either of these companies. Don't care who gets the bid. But I do think that it is important, given the environment that we're in, that we be as above board and as open, fire as much transparency as possible. And that's the point of this solution.
Okay, so I'm going to say one more thing, and I think Mr. Martin for procurement wants to speak, and then we're going to wrap it up. I think Ms. Smith may want to have a comment also. But my question, Red Sea, they are actually a vendor. So I don't know, it seems a little funny to me that we're reading this and taking their word for it or listening. I heard what Ms. Hickson just said, but I find it interesting. We have to be careful also that we're supporting Red Sea's position because they actually are looking at getting the contract also. So it may be a conflict of interest. But to take everything that they're saying in totality and say, okay, we get it. So I'm not sure if even Red Sea being a part of this unless there's a contract before the city that we can have this discussion. And so I'm just questioning how we're going about this. And I don't want us to be voting up something that theoretically we have no dog in this fight. So why are we voting this up? And I don't want us to have something be voted up that then becomes before the city. The city voted this up and said yay to that. And people use that to say that, the city is involved with this. I think it should go through the Atlanta public school system. That's where I am, so I'm a little uncomfortable at this point. Mr. Martin, would you like to speak, please?
Well,
yes, thank you very
point of order. Before he speaks, Madam Chair, I think I need to say something because I know you didn't intend it, but I feel like my integrity has been bruised by your statement.
No, Mr. John, I didn't say anything about you. I said, Red Sea, for no reason, no question.
For personal privilege, Madam Chair. Point of order is not debatable. I haven't spoken with Red Speed. I want to get this on the record. I haven't spoken with any company that's related to this agreement. I was approached by WSB reporter Richard Belcher, and he called me and questioned me about this contract that I supported. I supported this IGA. And he provided me with questions that I could not answer that disturbed me personally. And so I felt that we needed to take action. I felt that we needed to do something to make this process above reproach, and thus you have the resolution before you. And so, no, I haven't spoken to Red Speed. I haven't engaged in any conflict of interest. I do not know those individuals, have not met them. I believe that what I've stated here today, and that's all there is to it. I respect our law department. I've obviously worked with Ms. Robinson for many years. I respect her expertise. But to me, this isn't about the finer points of the law. It's about appearances. And it's about making sure that we're sending the right message on our side, that we are doing things and we're lending ourselves to process these in partnerships that are above board and are fair and transparent. And so I wanted to say that, get that on the record. Thank you,
Mr. Bond. Thank you. Mr. Martin, and then I think we have Mr. Perotti who wants to speak. So, Mr. Martin from Procurement, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman. Greetings, committee. This is CPO Martin Clark, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to this paper. I believe there are elements within the paper that may require to be filed, including a misstatement of the law and a constitutional violation that might render it fatal. The legislation that was proposed by Councilman Bond states that there are no programs initiated by school systems. Quote, thus Resolution 21R3005 proposes a process inconsistent with the requirements of state law, end quote. Committee members, I have to mirror the law department's position that the city of Atlanta cannot initiate this. This legislation did not consider the 2018 change in the law. And I believe the counsel for the Red Speed, I think, company made the same law. The state law that authorizes these programs is OCGA 4014-18. And again, it states that it's the school that is to first apply for and secure a permit from the Department of Transportation. So I mirror the law department's position on that. Further, the other concern was whether or not there is a constitutional concern on the language directing the mayor to then direct the Department of Procurement to procure the equipment. To direct the mayor or an executive branch department like DOP in this manner may be considered a violation of the separation of powers clause, and then accordingly, this legislation may be considered constitutionally defective, Chairwoman. In light of these concerns, I wanted to make sure I voiced that and would consider components of the resolution problematic, Chairwoman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Perotti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just be brief. I came into this sharing Councilor Bond's concern when he introduced legislation, but learned what I didn't know before was that we really don't have the authority, and it's not our decision to make in this instance. So while I support the broad intent of where Councilmember Bond started with this process, it feels a little bit like the quote Macbeth, sound and fury signifying nothing if it's outside of our control and scope. And so I agree with Council Committee Chair Shepard, and I will be voting against this. Thank you.
Mr. Perotti. So, Mr. Bond, my position is to say no. Is there a second?
Second, Perotti.
We're ready for the vote.
One moment, Madam Chair.
Will you clarify the motion? Well, clarify the motion for me, please. Did you make a substitution to do what? Were you making a motion, Madam Chair?
Yeah, I was making a motion. I didn't hear you ever make a motion. Did you make a motion to approve? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I made it at the end of my first statement. But so this motion is your motion is to do what?
To vote no.
Adverse.
Adverse.
All right, thank you.
So, if I may, Madam Chair, just so we're clear, if the motion is to adverse, which I seconded it, so my vote on the screen is a no. Does that mean I'm voting against the adverse, or I'm voting for the adverse? I think we need to be clear what the original motion was for, so that our votes properly reflect what we're voting for again.
You would have to vote yay for the adverse.
Right. So maybe can council staff clarify how they have populated the vote so that we can vote accordingly?
The motion is to reject this, Madam Chair. Is to oppose. It's like it will be an unfavorable motion as opposed to a favorable.
Right.
Correct.
Now, would that be, so that wouldn't be a no for me. That would be the motion. So I would be the mover to say unfavorable. Is that correct?
Yes, you'd have to vote yes to be unfavorable.
That's correct, yes.
So you have to change the vote, Ms. Lindo. Someone has to change the vote. It's right now it's showing a vote.
Okay, I will see it on the, let me. Right. Yes, Madam Chair, you made a motion to adverse, so then yes would be, yes, you agree to adverse. I can't see the vote, so I'm trying to, I don't know what you're seeing. I apologize.
I have a star on my thing that says no. It has me in a no.
Okay, we'll correct. We're going to, our staff is correcting that to vote yes, Madam Chair, to change your vote.
All right, Mr. Hillis, do you want to speak? I see you just put your hand up. Is this on the vote?
I'll wait till the vote's over.
So, Madam Chair, we're taking votes now to adverse, and it would be a vote yes to adverse. So, has everyone voted?
Yeah.
So the motion to adverse has passed. 3 yeas, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
Okay. All right. So the paper hit adverse. Okay. Mr. Hillis, do you want to speak at this point?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman Shepherd. I'm speaking to my vote to abstain. While there may be a lot of conflicting information and disagreements as to what's what in this paper and the previous IGA, I generally don't support adversing colleagues' personal papers and believe the more appropriate thing to do in those type matters is to hold it or to file it. So just explaining my vote. Thank you.
Go on mute. We could make a motion to file. I didn't think about doing that, but and my question is, does this have to go before FEC? Someone says it's going before FEC. Is this a dual referral? It doesn't say it's a dual referral.
Yes, Madam Chair, it is a dual referral. So this will automatically be forwarded to FEC.
Okay, because of funding. Okay.
That's correct, yes. And the procurement process.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. So this will now be referred to FEC.
Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I wanted to explain I voted against the motion to adverse, and I want to thank you, Mr. Hillis. You are truly a gentleman, and your disposition and your vote cast is representative of the historic courtesy that members have displayed to one another, and I appreciate it. And also, I just wanted to state this paper for the issues that were mentioned by our esteemed procurement director, whom I have a lot of respect for, could have easily been amended to either correct or delete those sections. But again, this isn't, for me, was ever about whether or not the city of Atlanta has the legal authority to enter into an IGA with our sister government. This is about the appearances of how the city of Atlanta conducts business, and of whom and of what parts of how we conduct that business, how it appears to the public. And so I will look forward to another Waterloo at the Finance Committee, but I think it's important that, we go on record that we want business conducted in an open and transparent manner, and that we want all parties that we have in-house and that we partner with do the same. And with that, I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. What I would also recommend that if we do that, if based on what you're saying, that this legislative process is going forth over at the Capitol, that we can put another resolution in asking for a clarity in terms of that and saying we support what's happening at the Capitol. But I just was feeling very uncomfortable in terms of how we was moving forward with this. I just think he was making the wrong statement. So we can agree to disagree. I have utmost respect for you, but in this particular case, I just didn't agree. So with that, we're going to now move on to item number 3. Ms. Lindo.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is Resolution 21R3140. It's a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to exercise Rule Number 2 of Sole Source Agreement SS8793-CL, the purchase of maintenance support and services related to the automated fingerprint identification system with NEC Corporation of America on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department for a term of 1 year effective April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022 in an amount not to exceed $262,706.00, all funds to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
All right. Are there any questions or concerns in terms of this legislation? I'll entertain a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Smith.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Ms. Lindo, we're ready for the vote.
One moment, Madam Chair. The vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right. I believe we have nothing up under held. We're at the end of our agenda other than held papers. We had one held paper that came off of held, and we've already dealt with that. So we don't have anything else before us at this point. Is that correct, Ms. Lindo?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
So can I go?
Hold tight. Oh, not yet. I'm about to make an announcement. Well, thank y'all for the work session we did last week on ACDC. Next Thursday, I believe, Ms. Linda, I believe the date is the 18th. We will have another work session with Fulton County Jail to actually listen to Mr. Sheriff Labatt, Fannie Willis, and Keith Gammon to talk about our jail system of Fulton County and all that's involved with that. We'll be doing a small tour of the court system this coming Friday. It's very limited because of COVID-19, so it's not a huge tour. So just want to let you all know that. I believe people have already signed up. If you hadn't, look at it. If we have to come up with another tour, we will. but just want to remind people of that also. So with that, that's all I have. Any other questions?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bond.
I'm not sure if there's a representative of APD still on the call, but I meant to ask this question when the chief was here. There was controversy last week when two of the police officers were involved in an arrest, two college students who had been subsequently fired by the mayor, were being affected by the Citizen Review Board. What I'd like, I don't want to get into the weeds of personnel matter, but just like someone to explain what is the process now. Are these officers, they've been reinstated to their jobs? Are they, they're still they've been fired? I mean, are they back in good standing, or are they still under investigation? If someone can explain that, I would appreciate it.
I'm not sure. Let me find out if Chief Bryan is here. If he's not, I'm not sure if the law department, somebody from the law department can opine on that. But if Chief Bryan is here, we'll ask. Ms. Lindo, do you know if he's still on the line? Anybody from the police department?
I believe we have the Deputy Sheriff Sharon Baum on the line, Madam Chair, the Deputy Police Chief.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chairperson. This is Deputy Chief Sherbaum from APD.
Okay, can you answer Mr. Bond's question?
Yes, Councilmember Bond, both of those officers have been reinstated to the department. However, they're remaining on an administrative assignment, not in an enforcement capacity. And an investigation is continuing into the allegations from that evening. Once all the facts are gathered for that, then appropriate recommendations will be made by Chief Bryan.
Okay. Thank you for that, because I've been getting asked that question. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. If not, anything else before us, Mr. Smith?
Yes, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Available. Let's go. Great meeting.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
All right. Bye-bye.